All right. So the agenda, as you noticed, has just been totally revamped. Just kidding. It's basically the same as it was Wednesday, just to we've got all of the language on the table. We've reached tentative agreement on everything but a few remaining articles. Just to review, Article 19, which had to do with supplements. We had some TAs there, and there was a little bit of maybe were we gonna put, we had talked about the post-secondary department folks,
right,
and what we might, right now we're just
leaving it as
just
is,
to
right?
review. I think that's what we agreed last time, but just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that that has all been
clear to me.
That, and we'll be working on that committee.
Okay, good.
Last time, what we had put on the table for consideration dealt with Article 2.7, which is a planning time, Article 3.4 duty, and we had kind of talked about tying in Article 3.7, which talks about an additional 25 minutes on Tuesdays. That is a something that was left in there when we went to an 8-hour day, and that language was not corrected. And so there was what we had kind of put on the table was, is there a way that we can creatively work on and adjust the language to deal with the issue of student supervision, which everybody agrees needs to be done, in Article 3.4 in exchange for that 25 minutes. So
okay,
I'll leave it to you.
All right, so we obviously we used our principal council, our principal designees, and they reached out to the principals, right, to see how would this impact schools and what is the impact. So the concern is by removing that 25, we already have a lot of structures in place, obviously, to eliminate time that, not eliminate, but to control the times that can be met, right? Like the 1 hour on Mondays, a principal can use for professional development, as well as every Tuesday, and the 25 minutes beyond the workday. Well, the 25 minutes beyond the workday, it's not about it going beyond the workday. It's about having the block of time needed to be able to do something meaningful, productive, or mandatory, for lack, because there are times that we get directives that you have to do this safety training, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to have testing training before you do this test, right? There are times that we need that. So it's not about the fact that we want it to go beyond the day, it's that we need the block of time. And the only other place that those blocks of times are where student supervision wouldn't be an issue is really on the Mondays. But I know that how we feel about Mondays a lot of times, right? That's super protected. So I didn't make a copy of this for everybody, but I just wanted you guys right across from me to be able to see visually what we're talking about as far as the limit. Oh, I'm so bad at making enough copies. I promise the stuff I'm going to pass out, I have plenty of copies, but this I'm going to talk through. So just as an example, and these are just sample schedules, like from a couple high schools, and middle schools and elementary. So for example, and I'll talk us through it, but like, let's say high school. Let's say, for example, if you were at a high school where your teacher hours, and they all kind of alternate or shift a little bit, but we're 7:40 to 3:40. If your teacher hours are 7:40 to 3:40 and student instructional day is at 8:30, in our minds, we think, oh, can our principals use that time before for the faculty meeting instead of having to go 25 minutes before or after the school day? But the reality is that bell rings and the campus opens to students. At least at my campus, it was 7:55. Some might be 8 o'clock, but it's right in there, which ultimately would give you 10 or 15 minutes to have a meeting, because we have to be out on supervision. In fact, we as principals and leaders at a school have to have eyes on every single entrance. Ever since Stoneman Douglas, like that's law. Like you can't even just open a gate, and you have to have visual on every single entrance. So that would only give 15 minutes during that time frame. So how do you do those meetings that you need to do? Middle school, very similar. Elementary looks a little different. Teacher hours, for example, at an elementary could be 7:10 to 3:10. Students arrive on campus at 7:10. So their block of time is more on the back end. But once you get to dismissal time, it's all about where is that meaningful chunk of time where you can deliver valuable professional learning, where you could deliver the information you need for whether it's safety training, security training, all those things. So that is where our mindset is with the 25 minutes, that we need those blocks of time. And it doesn't have to be on Tuesday. It could be on those Mondays if we wanted to put it within the 8-hour workday. Okay, so that is, and I don't know if, I'll throw it to Larissa first. Do you want to, is there anything that I missed there as far as what is done during those times or how?
No, I think you covered it. That's
Okay.
I reached out to every high school principal to just kind of hear their thoughts because I do things differently and I didn't want to be the representative for 28 other people if we all think differently. And each person sort of uses it in a different way, which I thought was actually really interesting. I learned a lot actually while I was talking to everyone. They did say that if there can be flexibility with Mondays, then they would absolutely be willing to make that consideration, but that they need time because we're still held accountable for the work. And we have to have systems in place to make sure that, you know, we're doing the work and that the work is being monitored and that we're measuring its impact. And so that was the one thing that the high school principals did say, which was about the Mondays. I think you captured.
Okay.
Same.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Middle school was similar. Frank's not here today,
Yep.
but middle school was similar.
Yeah, Frank is down in AP, so he's at his site, in supervision.
May I speak then around
Yeah, yeah,
this?
absolutely.
And, you know, with all great respect for the jobs that you guys are doing as principals, and I think that you guys have a really tough job. Other districts in our state are operating school districts with less than 8-hour days. We need more than 40 hours a week to do the work here, so we can be accountable for the work. And Larissa, I agree that that's how you feel. And I'm saying that maybe the accountability for the work is what we've lost. And this is what I'm going to talk about today. Because if the accountability for the work is the reason why you guys think you need that extra 25 minutes, let's really look at that. So let's look at the symptoms to that problem. What is the work that we're doing? What is the work that we're doing? It's for kids. It's for students. Are we sure that all of this work is for the students? Because I'm not really sure. So what I'm going to try to do with the help of our members is fight these symptoms to the problem that I see is overcoming and becoming the work because we've somehow lost our way. I've been blessed with this job and be the voice of teachers, and I'm only doing it to help kids. And I'm not really sure that we're doing a really good job of that because we're losing our way. And quite frankly, I think Mr. Davis has kind of muddied the waters and added more work to it as well. So let's take a look back and step back at what we're doing and how we're doing it. But let me talk about a couple things. Report card checks. What are they? Why are we doing them? That does not sound like it helps students. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say we need to stop those starting today. Are we talking to teachers and having conversations with them about the grades because they're the experts in the classroom about the grades that they're giving? We're trying to shake them down and change grades to make things look better. What are we actually doing? And then why are we only doing it in some grade levels and not in others? If it's so important to what we're doing, it isn't. I'm letting you know. And if you could tell me otherwise, if any of these things that I'm going to mention, you could show me that they're helping kids, I promise you that I will be the champion for them. But I am not today because I cannot understand why we're doing some of these things. So we're making work for the sake of documenting work, but it's not helping kids. PLCs. Back in the 90s, I worked with Dr. Rogers, who asked me to read a book about PLCs. Okay, as a department head, it was all about collaboration for the congruence of education. So as an 8th grade English teacher, I would get my 8th grade English teachers together for exactly that. Let's collaborate about what we're doing to get congruent education out of this middle school. So that way the kids all leave 8th grade with that same base of knowledge. We're going to share the work. We're going to make the work easier, not more. I don't know what's happened to PLCs. I don't know why we're using data. And let's talk about data. Data chats. We're asking teachers to bring data to these meetings. The data that you guys have, and how are they asked to use it? They don't even know. So we're going to start fighting what I call the symptoms to this problem of accountability for the work, because I want to know what the work is. I'm sorry.
Because you said it to me, so I want to.
But it's all due respect.
No, I didn't take it personally, but I want to say.
I don't want you to.
When I say accountability for the work is kids. And I think the work is making sure that we do right by kids. And so I don't even know what a report card check is for whatever it's worth. So.
And isn't that sad, right?
I don't know.
You're a principal in this district, but I bet if we ask an elementary school principal, they could tell you what they are, and they might even try to tell you that they're important.
Gotcha.
but somehow you're able to operate a high school and you don't even know what they are.
I don't know what
That's
that
to my
is.
point. Thank you.
But as far as the PLC situation is concerned, I think that the structures that are in place at some places really do exactly what you're saying.
I
It is
agree.
about collaboration, and it is about reviewing data, though I think it should be teacher-selected data, and it should be common formative assessments that they've agreed upon. But ultimately, I also think that those things are important to look at because we don't want disparities from one classroom to the next. I don't want to know that Rob Creed's classroom is the place where I put a kid and he's going to be successful, but Larissa McCoy's is where he's going to fail. And so if we look at those pieces, then we can talk to each other, not so much about you didn't do a good job or you're a terrible teacher or you're so great, but instead, hey, I realized that your kid crushed it on this standard or this benchmark, and I'm trying to figure out what you did so I can replicate that because I want my kids to be just as successful. And so I think just for whatever it's worth, when you have that conversation, know that I think we're trying to have those conversations.
And I want to be clear. I agree with you. And I know that your heart is pure. You guys are trying to do the very best job you can. But somehow the waters have been muddy for you guys as much as it has for the teachers that I represent. And that's what I want to get to. Because I'm thinking, and by the way, these are late night thoughts that I have. Okay. I am blessed, like I have been granted this job and I have an opportunity to fix some of the things that I see are a problem. And I'm letting you know, these are some of the problems, these symptoms. You talk about PLCs, let's go to 100 schools. We'll see 100 different versions of what that is. That's a problem. That tells me that whatever we're doing is ineffective and we're spinning our wheels. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be polling our teachers about what we're doing and what's effective for kids. And we need to do the same thing for administrators. And we need to get down and cut back down to where we were. I know when I started, Larissa, when you started, I don't want to get in the category of me, by the way. But,
She's
you
much
know,
younger.
yeah.
She's much younger.
I know she is. But when
Oh, yeah.
we used to get a list of things that kids needed to know in 8th grade, right? And then we had at it. We would get with our PLC, whatever, we would talk about how we're going to get there. We didn't have all these data. And by the way, asking teachers to bring data to a data chat is insulting and wrong. Well, let me give you an analogy. Okay, these teachers are working in a restaurant. You're asking them to be the greeter at the front of the restaurant, to seat them, to take their order, to go prepare the food, serve the food, and by the way, have an idea of how everyone's feeling about this whole process all while going on. And that's wrong. Okay, they should not be bringing any data anywhere. You guys, if there's important data, find the data that's important and serve it up to them and say, hey, this is what Britt needs to be successful. This is what Rob needs to be successful. And this is what Larissa needs to be successful. But if we're just doing data for the sake of throwing numbers at a wall, these are the symptoms to us needing more than 40 hours a week. And so this is what I'm going to fight. Because to me, it's logical and that we go away from this extra 25 minutes. All these people are working way more than 40 hours a week every single week anyway. And so I agree. You think you all believe that you need that extra 25 minutes. I didn't know that. And so I had to think about that. It's because there's all of this extra work that we're not really sure if you could. And once again, I'm going to go back to it. Any of this stuff that we're doing, and I don't even have a comprehensive list yet. All the stuff that we're doing, if you show me data that this is helping kids, I promise you that we will all get right behind it. But until that day, we're going to fight it because you're not even coming with the logic of, wait a minute, we're asking them to work even beyond a 40-hour work week. And it seems like, no, we really do need it. You don't. I'm telling you that you don't. The other districts find a way to do it. And so what are they not doing that we're doing? I promise you, the stuff that we're doing is not helping the kids. So my mission now is changing. Okay? As union president, I'm changing. It's going to be about what can we do to make this a better experience for the kids? And all the other stuff, we got to get it off the plate. I don't know how it got there in the first place. I don't know how PLCs became about looking at data or someone telling you that these kids are doing badly and these kids are not. You know, we don't need that. We don't need to know what kids are doing poorly. We know we're in the classrooms. We know what's happening. It's like telling us, you know, why broke people don't have, you know, are broke because they don't have money. We know they don't have money. We don't need data that shows us that. When kids are not reading, we know they're not reading in our classroom. So I'm gonna roll it back now. I'm gonna bring us back to where we're at because we're all related. Okay, we're all related. It was a simple ask to get rid of language that we should have been gone 20 years ago. You've been getting 30 minutes or 25 extra minutes from these teachers for 20 years already. It's really a fault of the previous people working in this field that didn't quite fix this, that I thought was a simple fix, and it's logical. A simple act of logic. It's not even kindness, just logic. And here we are saying, well, no, we can't do that. So, okay. Well, now we're going to start looking at the issues that are causing us to need more than 40 hours a week. And number one on my list is report card checks. So I'm gonna ask you to go back to your groups of teachers and ask if they're doing them, or your principals rather,
Principals.
and if they are doing them, say stop doing them, because I'm coming after that. And unless they can tell me why that's helpful. How is that helping Rob, Larissa, and Britt learn? I don't see it. I just don't. I think that time is better spent working on the lessons and the grading of papers. And we talked about the super protected Mondays. We do feel strongly about that. I mean, quite frankly, that seems to be the best block of time that our teachers really hold holy in being able to work in their craft that is at least time paid on the clock, right? They're writing lessons, they're grading paper, they're doing stuff for the kids. To give up any more of that time seems unfair, and asking them to clean up the restaurant on top of all the other things they're already doing at the restaurant, if we follow my analogy. So with that, I hear where you're at,
Mhm.
and I want to bring this argument with all due respect to everything that you're doing, because I believe in all of you here. I want to be clear about that. You guys as principals have been, I'm going to use this word, thrown things at you and asked you to collect data and information that I'm not going to ask you, but if you might question how valuable that is as well. We need to get to that as well,
I think
because your
that's a
job is
really
much
good
more
idea.
difficult than ever before, and I want to recognize that too.
It is.
And I've told that to our members. So anyway, with that,
Yeah.
I
Understood.
don't accept your point on it, and this is where I'm coming from. And so we're inclined to just leave the language as it is and then fight these symptoms. Once we clear up these symptoms, I promise you, we'll see, oh, there it is. We actually can work within a 40-hour work week. I'm pretty sure that we'll see that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, not looking for that.
Well, we still have something we'd like to present as some
Mhm.
options. We understand, and time, besides money, obviously, time is our most valuable resource. Like, those are the resources that we never have enough of. So we understand that. And I appreciate the fact that you see that the principals have some things that are being put on them as well, that without that time, they don't know how they would be able to make those things work. And
Mhm.
some of them, I think it is important that we look at every site and see how that time is being used. Because like you said, we may find that it is valuable. And if it is valuable and it's good for kids, then that's a whole nother conversation, right?
And I'm
So
willing to have that conversation, is what I want to be very clear about.
I understand.
Yeah.
I hear. So we have obviously we've been looking at 3.4, 2.7 in these sections. So while we looked at them, we saw some things that we think may be possible, but then also just some cleanup of language that is confusing. So have some things to pass across for us to look at. So I'm gonna be a really bad materials manager like I normally am. Did I pass enough around?
Yeah, do you need extra?
I don't know.
Or no?
Thank you.
I got
Donnie,
Johnny's on vacation over it.
you think about it.
He went to a conference, wrote a grant, and he's gonna get the, anyway. So you know.
Okay. All right. So, and I have several that kind of all go together, but I just wanted to start with 3.4.1. Obviously, we all know that we've been looking at proposals for several months now, but so the print in black and red is what's current. And then we have what we would propose to strike, and then the blue is what we're proposing to add. So jumping down, the second line, obviously, right now it says elementary ES teachers in self-contained classrooms shall not be assigned duties of the type referenced in this section. We would propose that it's not just elementary, that it's all ESC teachers in self-contained classrooms that should not be assigned duties of the type referenced in this section. Going down to the next, like the sixth line down where it says the supervision of students. It currently says the supervision of students allowed to remain on campus prior to the start of the teacher workday and after the end of the student day. We would propose that obviously supervision of students is important. Like after the end of the student day, we still have to supervise them until they get onto the bus, onto the car, into the bike ramp rack, wherever it is. So that's why we had proposed to strike student to teacher workday. Obviously, after the teacher workday, it is the responsibility of administration. We're proposing that we strike duties which cannot be accomplished in 15 minutes or less, such as breakfast in the classroom, require a 2/3 approval vote of the faculty by secret ballot election. Instead, we're proposing that we leave what it currently says in the contract. Secondary teachers may be assigned up to 15 minutes of duty for one semester. That's our current language for secondary. And then we're proposing, separate from being present to ensure student safety and security during arrival and dismissal, teachers at elementary and pre-K sites may be assigned up to 15 minutes of duty per day for the year. That's the current practice. Duties which cannot be accomplished in the 15 minutes per day for the year at the elementary and pre-K 8 sites will receive 1 hour of comp time per week. So the idea is to, if you looked at the waivers, like last year there was 109, this year there's 114 waivers to that to this contract language. Many of the waivers are just straight waivers of it, not getting comp time or anything like that. They're just waiving the language. Then there's the Part B waivers that they're waiving it in exchange for all sorts of things, right? And a lot of it is the comp time. Some of it is leaving early on a Friday, which ultimately, if you comp time, you could leave early on a
Right.
Friday. So it's kind of all the same thing. So we're looking to make it a little more uniform among sites. And then it doesn't have to every year go to a vote, whether or not we're going to do the whole student supervision and safety in the morning. And this is mostly an elementary thing, right? That's why we separated out elementary and left secondary as it is. So this is the proposal that we have for duties and classroom coverage. Okay,
Can I ask,
please.
isn't it exactly what we proposed in exchange for the 25 minutes? Okay. We'll talk about it in a caucus, sorry.
Yeah, okay. Yep. All right, so then in addition, we have planning time and lunch periods. 2 this way. I think I did 3. Few this way and across. Thank you. There's some more. You guys need more. I don't know if you guys need more. All right. Okay, 2.7. And a lot of this is just cleanup of language and trying to make things more understandable. So 2.7.1 talks about the planning time. Classroom teachers shall have uninterrupted daily planning time during which they will not be responsible for students' attendance at faculty meetings or be assigned to other duties except for emergencies. The school office shall maintain, we think duty roster should be in with the duty roster part, which is instead we think it would be the relevant information here is the school office shall maintain class coverage disbursement schedule and make it available for staff examination to ascertain the equity of assignments. 2.7.2, this is time outside the student day. It's for individual teacher planning except on Tuesday or where the faculty votes for a SIP waiver impacting this time. We're proposing to strike that because of the language that we just proposed in 3.4.1, which is that not including student arrival and dismissal time. 2.7.5, elementary teachers K-5 shall be provided with a weekly minimum of 2.5 hours of planning time within the student day, equivalent to 30 consecutive uninterrupted minutes per day. That is what we are currently doing, right? The 30 minutes during specials time. Elementary teachers planning time shall take place before or after the student day and during the day when students are with specials teachers, or in the case of kindergarten teachers when an aide is present. That would be inferred based on the fact that we can't use the other time except for when it is arrival and dismissal. Going to 2.7.6. Except for Tuesdays, all elementary teachers shall have a scheduled block of at least 35 minutes planning time per day. Didn't want to get confused because the planning period is not after the day, but planning time per day before or after the student day during their 8-hour workday. This is not changing anything with that language, just rewording it. It talks about the movement to an 8-hour workday, like you've referenced, that's been a long time. So that was probably put in there, worded that way at that time. 2.7.8, we're proposing that we strike this section. It is normal for teachers to be in their work area during their planning period. However, they shall not be restricted to their room or work area during the entire planning period. We don't expect that teachers be in their room during their, like,
We
so.
don't know why that's there.
Yeah,
Doesn't make
so
any sense.
it must have been at a time when people were expected to be there, but yeah. Yeah. All right, so that was something there. To clean up some language. All right, 1, 2, 3. You.
We need one more.
Oh, sorry. I have more. Oops, sorry. Oh, I have more. Do you need more? Coming around. You guys have the faculty meeting one? Oh, they're coming from that way. I see them. From John. This one is 3.7. Meredith, do you guys have that one yet?
No.
Okay, I'll wait. All right, this again is not to change any language, it's to clean it up. 3.7, the title, we're proposing that we change it to what statutorily has been put in place now, faculty meetings and professional learning. 3.7.1, faculty meetings and professional learning sessions shall be held on Tuesdays. These meetings shall be no longer than a total of 25 minutes per week beyond the normal day, except for school accreditation. No more than one faculty meeting per week shall occur on time beyond the normal workday. We are proposing that we bring up some of it from 3.72 up into this section. This is to guarantee personal planning time for teachers on the remaining days of the work week. The language is not intended to prohibit teachers from collaborating with colleagues. Meetings called in accordance shall not solicit money, and shall, if they do, they should be voluntary. And then 3.7.2, we're proposing that we strike that we just moved up and leave 3.7.2 to be specifically on election days in Hillsborough County. That's something that gets lost a lot of times, I think, because it's in like a big area, but we just are proposing that we clean it up a little bit. So that's 3.7.1 and 0.2. And then 2, 3, 4. Keep one for myself. I think I might have been short again. Oh, really short. All right. I know we talked about time and knowing that time is so valuable, obviously, and trying to find more time within the day and trying to streamline some of the processes and things that are in place in order to find that. So that is definitely a goal that I share with you. And this doesn't impact everyone, but it does impact some employees. And right now, in this day and age, there's probably more people than ever doing T payrolls, right? So 2.5.2, when the need exists, teachers presently employed full-time may be employed for an additional period, and we're providing that we strike or suggesting that we strike, provided that their regular day is extended by the equivalent of 1 hour. Currently, when teachers do T payroll, they are expected to come in an hour early or stay an hour after. And schools every school has a different process for documenting that time. So we are proposing that we strike that language, and that, teachers, if they are doing the extra hour teaching, they are being compensated that entire extra hour, but that obviously they are the professionals, that if they want to go home and grade those papers or do that work, that they shouldn't have to sit at the school site and log the time, for lack of a better way of saying it. Okay, so, and I know that's not as big as some of the other language that you asked for, but we're trying to find ways to do what we need to do and to not make people just meet to meet, stay to stay. Like, that is not our goal either. And if it is that way at some sites, we think this will help to navigate that. So these are some of the ideas we have come up with as far as being able to create safe schools, supervision, but then find ways to still compensate the elementary group that is doing more than 15 minutes if we count the student arrival and dismissal. And obviously we're open to, if 1 hour doesn't seem like that's compensatory for that, open to looking at that. Okay.
We'll caucus.
All right, sounds good.
All right, good. All right. So, I'll just so we understand and appreciate, effort going into looking at language and trying to look at this, because we do this have been doing this as a team, this whole, bargaining. We really believe that there's a lot of work to be done on this issue, as Rob very clearly laid out. We strongly believe that we offered a plan that would solve some of these, concerns in the language that costs nothing. And we know that a big part of this bargaining has been, what's available, what costs money. And when we looked at these proposals, it really came across that that our way of solving this was taken and then made inequitable. So our teachers are watching out for student safety, and that was something that we kind of wrapped our conversation up before we came back, that we want to be very clear, because a lot has been kind of said about making sure students are safe and they're being supervised, and our teachers are doing that. Our instructional staff and teachers go above and beyond daily to ensure that students are supervised, and they're doing this right now. So we just wanted to be clear that, any work on this language, we don't want it to be suggested that students are being left unsafe. So with that, I don't know if there's anything else you want to say, but we have a small counter. So in all of the proposals that came today, our plan is to keep all the language. We have one counter for 2.7.5. So on the 2.7 article of planning and lunch periods, all language would remain status quo. We have one counter on 2.7.5 that elementary teachers, we would add pre-K through 5, shall be provided with a weekly minimum of 2.5 hours of planning time within the student day, equivalent to 30 consecutive uninterrupted minutes per day, and keep the language elementary teachers' planning time shall take place before or after the student day during the day when students are with special teachers, or in the case of pre-K and kindergarten teachers when it is present. All the other language in 2.7 would remain. Our position on 3.4, language would remain the same. 3.7, language would remain the same, but we are willing to agree to the change offered in 2.5.2. That's where we're at.
Okay. And you didn't see any other areas any other big rocks that would be something that would be considered instead of just the faculty meeting?
I just bluntly put, not at this time. I mean, like I said, we think that there's a lot of work that can be done, as Rob has laid out, and, without, much more time, and we just don't believe that with what we have on the table and everything that's been agreed to at this point, moving forward. I think you said it clearly, we've got work that we've got to do over the next year or so.
Yeah, I would say that this has been the most productive bargaining season that we've ever experienced at CTA in my time. And that goes back before I was, serving in this role. And I don't want that to be lost on where we're at. I believe that we've made some major, we're taking steps forward to fix the problems. And I think that we've come to a spot where we're able to communicate those better than before.
Mhm.
Now, communicating is the first step to solving the problem. We're recognizing where we're at, and we understand what you guys are trying to solve for, and you understand what we're trying to solve for as well. So we think it is in our best interest to get something to ratification, to just take what we already have right now, but continue to work on it on both sides. I talked a lot early this morning, about the symptoms of the problems that we see, and I promise you that I'm going to work on that. And I believe that will help clarify some of the time problem that we're having. And I would, quite frankly, that's the issue, right? Is the amount of time that we have in our schools, and then how our employees are helping kids and how they're also supervising kids.
Mhm.
There's an easier answer for it all, and that would be to compensate people for extra time for the duties that we see fit, or that you see fit. But that seems like something that is not palatable on your side right now. And we would also say that in the conversation that we've had with our members, not only here, but at Rep Council, our members don't feel like our students are in a spot where they're unsafe at any school. I want to be clear about that. Like, no one says, yeah, my school, it's really dangerous spot. I mean, the most danger our employees feel are the number of kids in a classroom, quite frankly, not in the beginning of the day or the end of the day. So that's something that we would like to figure out as well. But so again, I just want to come back to, I don't want to get lost on the idea that we have not had a very, very productive negotiation here. And the communication has never been better. So I do believe that we could move forward from this. I don't think we don't have to wait 3 years to fix some of these things. I want to be clear about that as well. We're committed to looking at anything that you guys want to talk about, really at any time, to fix and get closer to how do we best utilize the time that we have with the students on the campus. There's a lot of issues here. And I think that we could chip away at it and find something, but in the interest of time with what we need to do now, I think that we can't solve that today. And I don't think if we keep going back to wordsmith this or that, it's going to really get us to a spot where either side is really comfortable with where we're at. I think we agree. We're not really comfortable with what's already in the language, but it's what we have. We can all go all the way back to Dead Sea Scrolls, right? We have language that's been around a long time. Thank you. I'm looking forward to that. So there are things that we know historically are there. And, to your point, the 25 minutes is in the contract. I respect that it's in the contract, so we're going to abide by that, of course. This dude will always abide. However, I still think it's illogical. And I think I made that clear. And we're going to come with creative ways to fix that. And really, like I said, we're going to look at the ancillary and extra things that we're all doing that I think we're just chasing our tail more than we think. And I'm hoping to get collaboration on both sides to figure that out and make this the innovative, great district that I know that we can be, and we have been in the past, and that we're all committed to going to. So with that being said, I think that we want to kind of just take what we have now, put it to ratification, and then come back and continue this great dialogue and discussion around this.
Can we have a short caucus? You might even be able to use the side room. All right, so we feel the same way as you do, that this has been a super productive bargaining season. You have had a great team, obviously a lot of collaboration on your team, and we have as well, which has been made the work easier, because it's been a heavy lift. Like, I know we can kind of feel each other's pain, that this has been a lot, especially with doing both books and back to back and all of that. So we are proposing that all of this is tabled, that we don't change anything that was presented today, and that we leave the contract language as is, and that we work towards, like you mentioned, finding this time and finding the things that we need to be able to make things more manageable for all employees. And that includes not just teachers, that includes support, that includes administrators, everybody involved, because we have to work smarter, not harder. And people work really, really hard, and we need to find ways to be able to sustain and still have work-life balance. And when I say balance, like I've always said, it doesn't mean that things are exactly the same, but being able to sustain and not feel burned out, and I always say that and not that I made this up, but we get burned out because we forget why we do things. And if we bring it always back to doing what's right for the students, then we are going to be in a better place. So I would say that we agree that everything that we've already agreed to is kind of where we are at this time, and that we work together to look at some of those structures that need to be looked at. And one thing that has come out of this bargaining season, with not just instructional, but with ESP, we're going to have some committee work to do.
Sure.
So I think we need to work and definitely codify that in writing so we can see we don't want it to get lost, right? Because time goes so fast, right? You'll make a decision and all of a sudden it's going to be January and it's like, we haven't met about that. So I want us to really codify in writing together what committee work, if we want to call it committee, or what work we're focusing on, so that we can make sure that it gets done and that we have something to show for it at the end. Okay. In addition, like if we're done, and which would be, high fives all around, like this has been a lot of work. We do want to get this ratified and done as soon as possible. The board has scheduled because the next board meeting wasn't for a while, so they have scheduled a special called board meeting for November 2nd, which is great. It's a Thursday, and what that would mean, and that the schedule or the agenda, I guess would be a better way to say, for that board meeting would be released on October 26th. And that's a super quick turnaround. So that's, I think it's doable, but I think it'd be good if we met, after this to kind of talk about what that ratification process and what we could do to see if we can meet those time goals. So yeah.
And I just want to say one last thing. So the one counteroffer that we put forth was adding pre-K to what is K-5, and you're uncomfortable with doing that at this time.
Correct.
Okay, and I just want to make a very strong point that we got to get to that.
Agreed.
And I mentioned this at my board meetings at the board meeting the other night. Early learning is something that we're missing the target. Not only is it important, in a student's learning. I mean, we need to make sure that those teachers that are doing what I think is an impossible, crazy job, and make sure that they are at least given the modicum of respect that all of our other K-5 teachers are given.
We share that sentiment,
right.
And we've discussed it and Rebecca's been key to kind of sharing what that looks like at, an elementary site. And we all feel the same way. We just have to be able to have the structures in place, whether it's more allocations for different people to support that work. No, we agree that that's something that needs to be looked at.
Again, that is student-centric, and that would help our reading
100%.
scores and everywhere we need them.
100%.
And it's such an important element that, and if we could lead the state in what we're doing for, early learning pre-K, then you will see all of those scores come up.
Yeah.
So I feel very strongly about that as well.
Yeah.
And I have the greatest respect for all of our teachers that are doing that pre-K work, that as a secondary teacher, I couldn't fathom how that operates every single day. So my hat goes off to all of them.
Yeah.
And if that has to be included in what we do with a millage plan, we support all of that, because again, it comes back to giving these guys the respect that they deserve and meeting the needs of our kids in our communities.
Yep. No, we are definitely on the same page with that 100%. And that was a conversation we had yesterday in detail, like we all think this needs to happen, but we have to have the structures in place to be able to make that happen. All right.
I'm just looking at my calendar and putting all the TAs into a document to get ready, so, but we can talk, we'll talk
Okay.
after this, but.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So
I think we should clap.
I know, that's actually good. Like, it's supposed to be a gavel.
And
Like,
it's special to you.
Yeah. Yeah, does he? Yeah.
Party session is finally over.